The press and the Down Beach Current were notified of this meeting. A copy of the same was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Would you take a second, turn off all electronic equipment and telephones, and we'll stand for the flag salute. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Tom, would you call the roll, please? Mr. Becker. Here. Blumberg. Here. Ms. Talby.
Here.
We will go right into department reports, and why don't we start with Jim today?
You're right. Town's quiet. Right now, all the people who were complaining left.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, every construction site that we were monitoring has basically finished their job, and now we're getting a lot of the streets cleaned up. But I think we got some in the fire for next year. We'll won't allow that to happen this year with the construction sites, with the dumpsters and everything. That's all I have.
Fred, do you have anything? Roger?
Nothing to add to that stellar report. Everything's fine.
Tom?
Everything's good here.
Scott? Scott, you're up.
Mayor, just a couple of things. At the 5 o'clock meeting, we are going to go into executive session on 3, I'll call them zoning cases, that the city's been named as a defendant so that we can discuss strategy and how to handle it. And that's in compliance, of course, with the Sunshine Law. So we'll talk about that at 5 o'clock. In addition, we have Resolution 194. Wow, do we have is this a better audio system? It sounds louder, better, clearer. Does it suit you, Mr. Sewell? Can you hear me?
Absolutely, positive.
About that. Something's different. It's an improvement. We're going to authorize a settlement with your concurrence, the governing body's concurrence, with the former employee. There was an issue regarding accumulated sick time and vacation time. And through the efforts of City Administrator Deeney and our Chief Financial Officer, Lisa McLaughlin, and myself, we negotiated with that employee and his attorney and came up to a settlement, which is in that Resolution 194. And so I would recommend that we accept that. And then the 3 other resolutions, we'll do that at 5 o'clock. After we go into, if you agree, we'll go into executive session and discuss those. I'll call them zoning cases, basically. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Deeney.
Thank you, Mayor. We received notice, not unexpectedly, that we received another small grant of $15,000 from the State Department of Community Affairs, and it's in connection with the grant that we announced at the last meeting, which was about $375,000. And this $15,000 will be for the sole purpose of complying with the federal and state regulations with regard to preparing proposals for the professionals that will ultimately do the studies for the $375,000 grant. But that's good news. It'll save us another $15,000. Secondly, I'd like to continue the report that I started last week, the last meeting, September 4th, and I'm going to update everyone in this report with regard to where we are with the consultants that we've hired in connection with the federal and state Beachfield program. These are the latest tidbits. Margate has received revised engineering plans for the Army Corps projects, but we still have some serious questions about those plans. Our consultant engineer has forwarded his comments to the city engineer, who, as of this morning, was in the final stages of review, and he promised me he will notify the DEP of Margate's continuing concerns and questions. As of 3:30, I have an email that was sent directly to the state, so Margate has now responded officially with the engineering concerns, which are continuing concerns and of some serious nature with regard to the drainage plans that have been completed by the Army Corps and the DEP. It's one of the most significant outstanding matters as far as we're concerned, and we're on record in responding to these latest plans. I will say parenthetically that we had received a call several weeks ago that the mayor announced that the DEP wanted to sit down and talk about drainage plans with us, but we have not, they were going to get back to us. We called a couple of times and they said they weren't ready. But the fact is they've never gotten back to us. All of that's recorded, we're aware of it, and will be used in the future if necessary. Number two, our consultant engineer prepared a report for our special counsel, and they and I met on Friday, September 12th, a week ago, and among the findings based on the review of the 18-year-old Army Corps report that led to this project are the following. One, the study apparently did not account for Margate's pre-existing bulkhead system in its analysis. We have talked about that here a little bit. They did acknowledge bulkheads when they did that report 18 years ago, but they concluded that because there was not a continuous bulkhead from Ventnor to Longport, that they pretty much rejected the whole concept of the bulkhead in their report. But of course, we look at it as Margate, and Margate has a continuous bulkhead. It's about 8,400 lineal feet of bulkhead. When I say lineal feet, the bulkhead's probably a little longer than 8,400 feet because it zigzags in and out as it comes down the beach, but from one end of our municipality to the other, it's about 8,400 feet. So that's the first major finding that it's not a surprise, but it's been recorded. The second is the study failed to consider the possibility of widening and heightening the beach berm with the same amount of sand instead of using that sand to construct dunes. One of the 12 ways that the Army Corps looked at this project 18 years ago in terms of what to do about it was to build various configurations of a berm. But they seemed, when you read through the 2,000 pages, to have rejected, without a thorough analysis, the concept of building a larger berm than they have ultimately decided to build, a little higher. And when I'm talking about a little higher, it hasn't been computed, but probably somewhere between 8 and 18 inches higher, rather than build the berm the way they have designed it with a dune on the top, which is maybe 5 feet higher, 5.5 feet higher. So one of the concepts that they never really analyzed, as far as we can see, sufficiently, is to place the same volume of sand on the beach in Margate, but in a different configuration. And we think that that's a very viable alternative, and a fallacy in their analysis by not actually analyzing that option sufficiently. And the third major engineering finding is the study did not appear to account for potential street end drainage consequences. We've been saying that all along. Our consultant engineer and our city engineer are on the same pages here. Rather than have the consultant engineer send separate reports, we've had the consultant engineer share his findings with Ed, and Ed has sent, as of today, an analysis of the drawings, the latest drainage drawings to the state with our questions and comments. And so Ed is the official person as city engineer that will be communicating with the state on that. In addition, meetings are being scheduled with appropriate state representatives to express our ideas for an alternative solution. The alternative solution is being put together, but it will likely be one in which, for a whole variety of reasons, centers around what I was just describing. That is, a berm that's slightly higher than the existing berm that they want to design, but it would not include any dunes. We have obtained information that the project has been placed out to bid by the Army Corps, with a bid opening date scheduled for October 21st. I have not seen the ad. We have been advised by whisper down the lane that has happened. We have not been officially advised. But we understand that as of October 21st, they would be receiving bids. That's been communicated to our special counsel, and now it's communicated to you as well. No notice has been received from the DEP regarding legal action involving city-owned beach property. No one that we know of in the city has received any communication from the state with regard to the easements that are still necessary. In the event the DEP or any other party takes legal action to invoke its powers of eminent domain over the portions of the beach owned by the city, we as a city are prepared to meet immediately to consider an action plan that is conceptually in place. What that means, and that's a direct quote from our legal counsel, they are ready to meet with the commission immediately upon notification that there has been some filing of eminent domain. Now, these are my words now. The whole idea behind what we're trying to accomplish here is trying to stay within all the federal regulations and guidelines and laws and appropriations, and to satisfy the various interests as they care only about their self-interests as organizations or entities with regard to those rules and regulations and laws. And to get the Army Corps to consider a revision of the plans that is within their rules and regulations without having to go back to Congress for additional approvals, without delaying any times that are crucial for losing or not losing money, and to avoid congressional concerns at the same time. Now, I'd be glad to try to answer questions of what all that means, but that's my interpretation of the goals and strategy that's behind what I've just announced here. The plan is to be meeting with appropriate elected representatives and then the Army Corps at the highest levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
What I just said, I have some copies of. I'll make them available between the meetings, and everybody that wants one, we'll make sure you can have one. And it also includes whatever I said publicly at the September 4th meeting. It's all on one page.
Thank you again, Rich. Chief Wilson?
I have nothing other than if I draw your attention to resolution at the regular meeting 193, just for clarification, that is a replacement vehicle. It's not an additional vehicle. It replaces an unmarked car we have that has basically outlived its service life. So an interesting point of note, we decided to trade one SUV, or replace an SUV with an SUV, and that state contract purchase price is the exact same price if we purchased a car. So I look for your support on that one. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ed?
Okay. During the summer, I was asked to take a look at the dry weather, high tide flooding that occurs down Washington and Amherst and all along Washington Avenue up to Monmouth in some cases. And we took a look at it and possibly identified the problem, feel pretty confident actually. The check valve that is on the large pipe which drains from Ventnor Avenue to the bay is at the end of its useful life. It's a spring-loaded valve. It curls to stay closed, and it appears that the spring has lost its life. So I requested a quote. As a side note, we're replacing one of these valves as part of the road program in this year's, that's the one that's going to start in the next couple of weeks. I requested a quote from that contractor as well as two other contractors, and they were the low bid at $32,000. This is a very large valve. I believe it's 48 inches in diameter, or 42 inches in diameter. And it's a rather, not a complex, but a hefty project to replace the valve. There is money in the current road program that we're just closing out. We're going to have a sizable reduction in the overall contract quantity, or dollar value. So I thought it was one way to get this accomplished inexpensively if everyone wants to go along with that. So I put it in the report. If you want to think about it, ask me any questions later, but there is, I mean, I could show you photos. Every high tide, real high tide, the streets are flooded down there, and the restaurants are impacted, the residents are impacted, so this should help. There's also one on Adams Avenue, which we would look at as the next phase if that's a problem. These valves were placed about 15 to 18 years ago. They've been very effective, but they do have a finite life, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The Washington Avenue repurposing, we did, and I don't know if I reported previously or not, but FEMA did come back to us and did approve our plan. The reimbursement can be very generous. I don't have the exact dollar value, but we should be in very good shape with that project when we go to bid. Obviously, they will only reimburse us for what we spend and what was there that needed to be repaired or brought up to current codes and standards. So I'm working on that cost estimate now. Fred has just given me all the his markup drawings with IT, communication, fiber optic, any of the wiring that we need to do in that project. So I'll get that incorporated, and I did request a quote from Maggie Hampton, who was the interior designer that did the surfaces and furniture, flooring, everything the last time it was done. So she did forward a quote to me. I will forward that to you. I believe it was like $5,800 to spec out the floor surfaces, wallpaper, ceiling types, and then we'll be ready. We'll go out to bid as soon as I get this incorporated. The Union Avenue Municipal Building generators, we currently have two separate grants, one for $87,000, one for $100,000. I was instructed by the county to not do anything until those grants are signed off on, or else the cost of design will not be reimbursable. So I pretty much put that to the side. As soon as they give us the okay, I'll go 100 miles an hour, we'll get that out to bid. It's actually for 2 generators for this building, one for the large power supply for utilities, the other for lighting and incidental. One's a 480 volt, the other's a 208 volt. 2014 road program is under design, so we will be looking probably late fall. We'll go out to bid so that there would be spring construction. As far as the projects that are either under construction or ready to go to construction, 2012 road program, punch list, there's a lot of sprinkler and sod repair, and there's a piece of gutter on the beach block of Essex that needs to be replaced. Then that project will be complete. That is the project that we have some money if we want to do the valve with. The municipal building, Union Avenue, Phase 1 is underway. Contractor has submitted shop drawings. They've been reviewed. Parts have been ordered, and everything should be installed in time for heating season. And that essentially is all the work under the building: steam valves, steam traps, sump pumps, flue liner for the chimney repairs. It's everything to get the heating system up to par, and also to help control the moisture issue we have under the building. The new lights are courtesy of the direct install program that we were part of. The contractor is in the process of scheduling the installation of the 2 gas-fired heat and cooling units that are on the roof of this section, and I believe we have to talk about controlling them, how we're going to integrate them into our existing computer control system. The 13 road program, the pre-construction meeting was held on that, and as soon as I get a schedule from the contractor, I will forward that to everyone. Well 10, the contractor mobilized on Wednesday, and apparently we had some problems with our geothermal wells over at the firehouse, which is used. So I had asked my inspector to take the well contractor over there to see what needed to be done to fix that. So I don't know what the outcome on that was that just happened, but it was convenient that the contractor was in town. And then the only other thing, I met with Roger McLaren today on a few street opening issues. One was a replacement or the installation of high pressure on Coolidge and Amherst Avenue. They will be in to start that the week of the 29th, okay? They'll run from down a little bit in Monmouth, from Monmouth down Coolidge to Amherst, and behind the sidewalk on Amherst for the 3 homes next to Stephen Cookie's. And as part of that, they're also going to do some paving work for us. In addition, we received a hardship letter for a house on the unit block of Huntington. A new house being built, had existing water, sewer, and gas. The gas company will not let them utilize the existing service because of its condition. The street is under moratorium, but it's close to being at the end. So Roger and I went and looked at that situation, and up the street, 2 or 3 houses, there were 2 emergency openings, which were not done very well. So what our suggestion is, if commissioners are agreeable, is we permit them to do the opening for the new house. It's a 4x4, it's next to the gutter, and then they mold the service under to the house. And in exchange for that, as well as doing a proper restoration, they cut out the entire area of these 2 emergencies. They mill out the area for the 2 emergency openings and repair the paving there so that the integrity of the street is restored. So if everyone's in agreement with that, I would.
You okay, Mark? Yeah.
Okay.
And
Move forward on it, then, please.
if this would be a good time also, while we're giving you our okays, I think it's important to replace that check valve so that we can lessen the flooding on Washington Avenue. And if we have the money in the budget from the road program 2012, I ask you to go ahead and move forward with that if it's okay with Maury and Mike.
I'm good
Okay.
with that, too.
Okay, what I'll do is there's probably a little bit of a lead time, so I appreciate the quick action. I'll get the contractor to order it right away. And we're also probably going to go with an improved version of the check valve, because it is 18 years old and they have come out with improved versions of it, so.
Hey, Ed, do you have an estimate of the check valve?
I'm sorry?
Estimate of cost for that check valve?
$32,000. I have an actual quote from the contractor.
32.
Anything else, Sid?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. Marty, you have anything?
Yeah, I did. I had a question for Ed. Ed, on the generators, the proposed generators, physically, where would they be located?
We had looked at putting them where the existing temporary generator is, because of the location of the gas main.
Which is over here on
Union Avenue.
Union.
By the back doors.
Right.
Our main gas feed is there, even though the other thing is the services are, all the electrical power, everything is right there. So we would install the 2 generators, do a full fence, and then it was my suggestion, or maybe it might have been Frank's suggestion, I'm sorry, we ring it with arborvitae so that
Yeah,
the
and that
neighbors
was
don't
my
have to
point.
look at
Wherever
it.
they go, I'd like to, because now we don't have any landscaping around.
Exactly.
The temporary, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah. And-
So when we do go out for bid, if we could include that, that would be great.
And the arborvitae work really well. They create a nice fence.
Yeah,
So-
good. And I wanted to say thank you for the work that you did. These new lights are great.
Well-
If we had these lights when I was a kid, I probably could have got 30 points a game in here.
But I have to
No,
tell you.
really.
I have to tell you, these lights weren't exactly what were specified. They couldn't get what were specified. They asked Fred, what did he think? He made the call. I applaud his decision.
In that regard, I probably could have got 32 points a game.
Maury, I didn't need lights.
And I also, Mike, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Rich for the extra special effort that he has undertaken to take the lead on this beach issue that we have. I think it's great. I think we're making great progress. And so for that, I want to say thank you, Rich, and thanks for the detailed report. And that's all I have.
Okay. Brenda?
I echo the compliments to Rich. In fact, I think he could get baskets in the dark. I'm going to be frank today because he's on vacation. I hope he's enjoying himself. Recycling is back to its every other Thursday pickup schedule. And then weekly recycling will start again beginning Memorial Day, and we'll have that Memorial Day through Labor Day. And also, as of September 28th, the city yard will be closed on Sundays for the season, but it is still open and will remain open year-round on Wednesdays from 1 to 3 p.m. The city newsletter should be emailed out. Fred's going to email it out tomorrow. We're just waiting on one item. But there's a special story in there on Rosie. She's retiring in December, and she's the employee that we're highlighting this quarter, and Rich wrote a really special article. So I think you'll all enjoy reading that.
Stand up and take a bow, Rosie. Come on, stand up. Come on, Rosie.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank Ed for the progress he's made on those projects. A couple of those were special to me, and I'm especially happy that we're making some progress on the old City Hall in Washington Avenue. And just to make it unanimous, to show that this commission can do things in a unanimous way, I think Mr. Deeney is the best thing since Ovaltine. And Rich, thank you for everything you do. You're a pleasure to work with. At this point, we will open it to public comment on anything that was discussed here today.
Sewell, 22 West Drive, following up on the remarks of Mr. Deeney. When he mentions alternative solutions, I hope first and foremost that we will not continue to do what has been done in the past. It is futile to do replenishments when they only silled up the Great Egg Harbor Inlet. A master jetty is a one-time, fixed-cost, permanent remedy. All he has to do is look to Brigantine, where the Absecon Inlet has been tremendously advantaged, as well as the people of Brigantine, where thousands and thousands of feet have been added to the beach, and it'll do likewise here. In fact, our esteemed solicitor can remember that on behalf of Mayor Kreischer, he tried to stick a master jetty at Fredericksburg, and Mr. Donato and I denied him that. So I hope that the solicitor will be just as intent on putting a master jetty at the end of Longport to prevent the silting of the Great Egg Harbor Inlet. If you recall, a professional boater, a tow boat operator, was killed by hitting a hidden sandbar in the Great Egg Harbor Inlet. So if a professional boater can be killed, what about the happy hilarious that don't know how to boat? And also, last but not least, I don't know whether the mayor bothers to read the newspapers, but this election between Frank Lobiondo and Hughes is going to be a squeaker. And if you're ever going to get a favor out of Frank Lobiondo, it's right here and now. I would suggest that Frank Lobiondo has a meeting with the commission whereby he will find the federal funds to put a master jetty at the end of Longport. You know, miraculous things happen when the elections are tight, and I think Hughes is going to give him a run of his lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Bill Potts, 26 North Frontenac. On the subject of flooding, could I possibly get an update on the situation with the pumping station in Ventnor that's going to relieve the flooding along Winchester Avenue?
Okay, I know the financing is moving along. There's no obstructions there. I received an email from Ventnor City's engineer maybe about a week ago that they submitted the permit for the bulkhead that needs to be replaced adjacent to the pump station. So the project's moving ahead. The funding cycle is a very slow cycle. It's a very slow mechanism. Don't have a date for you, but there has been nothing that has come across my computer that says that it's not going to happen in the near future. It's just an issue of, it's the New Jersey Infrastructure Trust as part of the Sandy funding. It's all the permitting that's necessary for it. So the funding looks good, the permitting's in process. Once those pieces come together, then we'd be able to go out to bid. And I believe Ventnor will have to put the project out to bid because they have ownership. But that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Leonard Grossman, 112 South Lancaster Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Dini, for keeping us updated on the Dunes project. I have two questions, and can I answer all my questions and then let the answers flow? Sure. One is, what's the difference between a berm and a dune? And the second one, is there a current environmental impact study been done on the dune project, which considers birds and all the other wildlife? And for Mr. Abbott, I was wondering if these resolutions, I know you're going to go into executive session, but are they public information? And if they are, could you inform us about the nature of the allegations and if there's a monetary amount claimed?
Want me to answer?
Why don't you answer first and then
Chris
you...
answer first?
No, you answer first.
The three cases are essentially not about monetary compensation. They are zoning issues. The first one has to do with a dispute about placement of a two-story porch with a roof. The second one has to do with the approval of a deck on the bay behind a residence. And the third has to do with an approval to allow an end-unit townhouse at Coolidge and the Beach to be replaced by a single-family home. I call them zoning cases because they are lawsuits that are challenging either our land use board and/or a zoning decision rendered by a Margate official.
Thank you.
Okay.
I could give you an amateur definition of a difference between the berm and the dune, but I'm going to let the city engineer do that.
So being an amateur, I need an amateur explanation.
Essentially, the berm is the flat area of the fill of the beach. Okay, then there's the slope. The dune sits on top of the berm. Okay, so if you were looking at a profile of the beach, you start at the mean low water line, the beach slopes up, continues to slope up, and then flattens out, and in some cases then subsides as it gets to the bulkhead. The dune is then placed on top of the berm, okay? And the dune is, as proposed, is an 80-foot wide by approximately 5.5 feet high structure, okay? And with a 10 to 20 foot flat top, okay? And it varies. So essentially what was discussed here is that the berm would just be increased in height and width with the volume of sand that you would have for the dune.
Thank you.
The environmental impact study, does anybody, I don't know of any that,
No, I don't.
I know that question, Mr. Grossman asked that question.
I think you've asked that question before.
Yeah, I'm a pain in the neck, sir.
I personally can't verify it, but I would bet a lot of money that it's been done, but I can't verify that. I will ask the appropriate officials to make sure that they confirm that.
Rich, there's two reports that were submitted here about a month ago. Remember the one from, they both referenced that EIS, environmental studies were done.
We'll get back to you on an exact answer to that. Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
As you can see by my walk, I've been on this earth for a few years.
Would you give it, for the record, would you give your name and address, please?
I'm sorry.
Your name and address for the
I'm
record.
sorry. Arthur Selnick, 114 South Lancaster Avenue. Actually, I feel like I'm making a commencement speech because I think that the mayor and this board is the best I've seen since I've been around. And I think I've been in Margate about 50 years. The point I'm trying to make is that I'd like to be around a few more years and enjoy this Shangri-La that we all talk about. And lately, I've not been talking about it because I don't want too many people to know how great it is. And I've been on a few beaches. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm deeply appreciative of what you all have done, and particularly the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Art, very much. Anyone else?
Dan Gottlieb, 407 North Nassau. I'll try not to get too close to the mic this time so Scott can hear me. Mr. Dini, thank you very much for a very thorough analysis. I just want to clarify something for the record. The February 3rd meeting where Mr. Abbott, Mr. Deeney, Mr. Becker met with David Appy. I think one of the key takeaways from that meeting was the understanding that Margate will not be required to enter into a project agreement with the Army Corps. Is it your understanding that by not signing a project agreement, the city will not have any ongoing financial obligation related to the Dune project?
That is correct.
Whoever wants to answer that.
That is correct. Yeah.
I agree with the mayor that that's correct, that we don't have a legal financial obligation by not signing it. What I'm concerned about, and we're all concerned about, is if they were able to do the project and leave it to us, we're the only ones here to maintain whatever we have to maintain. And what I'm particularly concerned with, and what the engineer's concerned with, and we've been concerned from day one, is the drainage effects of the beach fill that we don't presently have. It's not that we don't maintain the beach now. It's not that we don't spend a lot of money now. But we don't believe that they've adequately considered, we know that they haven't adequately considered what's going to happen after the beach fill. And I've been involved a little bit with beach fills up and down Cape May County, and I've never seen that result. The local government should know exactly what those effects are going to be. So we think that's the most crucial issue facing us right now. We intend to, that intends to be part of the strategy that will be presented to the commission at the time when we would have to spend legal dollars to challenge this. And by the way, on legal dollars, you know, I feel committed personally, and I believe the people that I've spoken to, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, are committed personally that as it relates to that issue, we're going to do everything we can to get that resolved, if no matter what the legal concerns are. I'm not talking about the big project, whether we're going to fight the whole project or not fight it. And what I'm talking about is the drainage right now. So I want to be clear that we're going to take whatever action we can to understand what our obligations are in the future with regard to the drainage. We think that's the most important issue right now.
Okay, I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded to me like the answer to the question is that it is your understanding that by not signing a project agreement, the city will not have any ongoing financial obligation related to the Dune project. It sounded to me like that was a yes, that is your understanding.
No legal financial.
Do we know what the estimated costs are associated with building and maintaining the drainage system? And I would say at this point, maybe you don't know because it's still, a lot of that's up in the air. But beach renourishment, the easements, do we know what the associated costs are with that for the city? Have we determined that?
We do not.
So we don't know if the Army Corps is going to be or the state is going to be 100% responsible for those costs. And obviously that would be something that would be good if we could get in writing if there is no project agreement. I don't know, like we said, legally maybe not responsible, but practically there's going to be obviously some responsibilities. And I think it would be incumbent upon the commission to, if we don't know if Margate's going to be responsible or the state and the Army Corps is going to be responsible, I would urge this commission to find out who will be responsible and get it in writing. For the solicitor, Scott, did Ventnor take the same approach of not signing the project agreement?
Yes.
When I was the city solicitor in Ventnor, there were a number of issues that the city fathers of that town were in substantial disagreement with the DEP, and for that reason, they refused to sign that agreement. And as a result, the state ended up pumping the sand in anyway without the agreement ever being signed. So what is the question exactly?
Question then would be, if there was no project agreement for Ventnor.
Not when I was there. It was subsequently signed years later, that I understand.
Is that why Ventnor was then responsible for their 8.875% of future beach fills?
There was an agreement that Ventnor would pay the 8.75%, but there were a number of other issues that the city would not do. One of them was they would not sue the beachfront owners for condemnation purposes. Flat out refused to do that. One of the other reasons they wanted it, they wanted the ability to control the height of the dunes. And the state would not bend on that. We even had an expert, we even met in Trenton, because the dune was 2 feet above the deck of the boardwalk. I remember this very well. I went to Trenton on it. We wanted to be able to control the height of the dune. The state refused to allow that. Unlike this current agreement, the current agreement has been modified now so that the municipalities can legally give the sand dunes a trim to keep them at the design standard. Am I correct about that, I'm not saying anything's wrong.
That is correct.
So, and that was a huge difference now versus then. And there were some other issues too, Dan, but I don't really recall all this. I just remember that the governing body finally said, we're not signing.
I was just trying to get to why is Ventnor responsible for 8.875% of the renourishment cost if there was no project?
You have to remember when Frank Lobiondo came to the city of Ventnor, and I have pictures of this, and inaugurated that beach patrol or beach replenishment project, the ocean water was under Frankfurt Avenue Boardwalk, which is the north end. Everybody thinks that beach is a great big beach. There was no beach. The erosion was horrendous. On the south end, on the Margate side, there was no sand oceanward of the boardwalk. So high tide was lapping on the seawalls and bulkheads. The city of Ventnor officials at that time were extremely grateful to have that sand pumped in. And the number one fear in Ventnor was the loss of the boardwalk. You have to recall, the boardwalk was lost in '44. They rebuilt it over a 7-year period, finalizing it in '52, and 10 years later in the March storm, the boardwalk was completely destroyed again. So in the 90s, the Ventnor officials' number one concern, well, two concerns. There was no beach because it had eroded away, and they wanted to protect the boardwalk. And I might say, Dan, one of the issues we face in arguing, is there protection or is there not? That boardwalk's here today after Hurricane Sandy.
It's not a problem that we have to worry about.
We don't have a boardwalk.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
One final question. Go ahead, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
I haven't heard much about the fishing pier, and I suspect it will be a fairly expensive endeavor. If the Army Corps is not covering most or all of that cost, it is very unlikely that the owners of the fishing pier will be able to maintain the pier. What kind of agreement, do we know if any type of agreement, has been made between the state and the fishing pier owners, and how will this impact the city if the owners cannot afford to maintain the pier?
Can I answer that? As far as I know, Dan, there is no agreement. The Corps of Engineers has agreed months ago in principle to extend the fishing pier, make them whole, and to whatever the costs are, they will take care of it. Okay. Thank you, Dan. I think your 3 minutes are up. Are you?
Yeah, I didn't do most of the talking, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gottlieb?
I ran the clock on you, huh?
Yes.
You were asking about the 8.5 or 8.75%.
8.875.
No.
8.7.
Oh, I thought it was 8.875.
Less than 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2/3 of 1/4 of the total project cost.
Right, I understand that.
If you don't sign the project agreement, you have no obligation. The reason why we don't have even though we don't want the project, or some of us don't want the project. The reason why we don't have that obligation in this project is that that 25%, which used to be shared between the state and the local, is picked up entirely by the state. It's my understanding that the money they're going to use to pick up that full 25% of the state share is coming from the Sandy funds. And that's why this project is so important to the state, because they're going to use the Sandy funds instead of other state funds for the portion of the 25% that they normally would have to pick up. That is 25 less 8 3/4.
It's exactly what happened in Ventnor on their last fill after Sandy. That's why they weren't responsible for their 8.75%.
But I know you were asking questions in several ways relative to our responsibility, and we are certain that we have no legal responsibility financially in the future. But I don't want you to mix up, and I know you've seemed like you got it, from our practical costs that we're going to have as they relate to drainage.
Right. And
Thank you, Rich.
The final comment I'll make is that we know those Sandy funds are not indefinite. That might be a one-time go-around. And if we need a renourishment, which I think we will, then that Sandy fund money's not there, and I doubt it will be, then that's going to fall on us.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Steve Altman, 9003 Amherst Avenue, Margate. I won't take the whole 3 minutes. I've lost my train of thought with that.
Thank you very much, Steve. The 3 minutes are up.
I wanted to know whether any other community in New Jersey is against, a coastal community in New Jersey is against the state's suggested sand dune projects. Anybody other than Margate?
Some months ago, when I spoke to the state, Steve, they told me it was Margate and a town called Bayhead. Now, I haven't checked on Bayhead for months, so I don't know where they stand, but at one point there was.
And our referendum, what was it, about 67% of Margate didn't want the dunes? Is that the correct figure?
65, I believe, Dan, would that be correct?
It was 64%, and the vote was to not
sign a contract.
the contract.
Right. Now, would that represent about 1,000 Margatians who voted that
I
way?
think it was more than that.
There were 1,500 odd people that voted not to support the project, and I think it was 700, so the other way.
So in effect, 700 Margatians are the only people in New Jersey who don't want the dune projects along the barrier islands. That would be...
No, the other way around, Steve.
The other way around.
Yeah,
Okay.
1,500.
And to this question of going forward, if the Army Corps of Engineers prevail, and we have a storm that wipes out the sand dunes, Congress, let's say, hasn't come forward with any funding, we could have these rather large walkways suspended in air over no sand at all. That's a real possibility?
No, because the walkways are actually just gravel and sand. There are no structured walkways over the dunes.
No wooden anything?
No, it's the handicap ramp. The only piece of wood in the handicap ramp would be a single rail. The pedestrian crossovers, the handicap crossovers, and the vehicular crossovers are all constructed out of I-5 gravel. And then what happens is the sand at some point just blows across the top of it, so it disguises it. But they're essentially, if you look at Ventnor's or go up to Atlantic City in front of the Boardwalk Hall, you'll see the I-5 gravel walkways down onto the beach.
I have seen that,
Yeah.
So if we have a major storm hit Margate, that's just going to blow away, and we don't know whether we would have the responsibility or somebody else for putting it back. Do we, in this process, eliminate our existing access to the beach, the walkways that go over the bulkhead? Will they be gone?
As part of the process?
Yeah.
No, the walkways over the bulkhead stay, our stairwells, our stairways over the bulkhead stay, as well as our handicap cut-throughs. Everything stays the same on the bulkheads. They don't touch the bulkheads at all.
So we would still have access if the dunes got washed away in one place or another?
Provided there's still sand on the beach, yes.
Okay. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Warner, 103 North Sumner. I just want to say that anybody gets a chance to go to the north end of Ventnor, the south end of Atlantic City, and look at the beaches today, and they're beautiful, beautiful beaches, okay? They're like 200 feet deep, and they're as nice a beach as you're going to find anywhere in the world. So if this is what we have to look forward to, I think it's pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Joan Naden, 8 North Quincy Avenue. I just want to answer Steve Altman. I recently did a little bit of research on that, whatever it was, 64 or 65% that voted against the Dune project. That was 64 or 65% of the people who voted. That was not the totality of the registered voters in Margate. I believe when you calculated it out, 44% of the registered voters actually voted, and it was 64% of that 44% that voted against the project. I researched that.
That's correct. Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance. Is there a motion to close public comment?
Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry. I forgot one thing, and I apologize. I just want to remind everybody, on Saturday, September 27th, we are participating in the National Prescription Drug Drop-Off Day, and there'll be 2 locations. One will be at the police department, and one will actually be at the police tent at Fun Fest on those days. In addition to that, we now have a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year drop-off, but at the police department, so you can do it any time, but that's the date for the National Drug Drop-Off.
And Chief, that's really great. Our green team is thrilled because now we have a safe way to dispose of our prescription medications. It doesn't go in our water and pollute our water, so it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I guess you still have. Did we, Tom, did we close public comment?
Pardon me?
Did we close public comment yet?
No.
No. Okay. Is there a motion to close public comment?
I'll make a motion that we close public comment.
I'll second it.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Blumberg?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll take a very short break and go to work with our agenda.